Okay, so the last step in doing the Taylor Swift lover outfit is to do the beaded fringe at the bottom of like the top of the leg entry. So what you're going to need is a couple different types of stones, possibly 3. I started out with 2 different sizes of the bicone style. So the small ones are the easiest to find. That's a 4 millimeter. And then the slightly bigger ones are 6 millimeter. Those are both pretty easy to find. I had a hard time finding anything bigger than that. Unfortunately, I misjudged the color when I got this. This is rose, and I thought rose would be about right. As it turns out, light rose is a bit better. I was able to find light rose in a bigger one, which is what I wanted. So we're doing both. If you can find everything in light rose, that's going to be better. The other thing I wanted to say is that this is a bit of a, I guess, a plan B to what is on the actual outfit. From what I can see, Taylor Swift's Bodysuit, the original one, has a different style of bead called a teardrop shape. Now, I'll not go into a big rant about Swarovski, but basically a few years ago, they discontinued selling to the public and made a lot of their stuff unavailable. So it's harder for people that aren't approved designers, like big name designers, to get a hold of certain things through Swarovski. So it basically starts out as it's a teardrop, you know. So I'm mimicking that by using different sizes of beads. Now, in addition to the beads, oh, and what you want if you can't find Swarovski is there's this, I always called it Precocia, but I guess it's Preciosa. I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right, but it'll be glass beads, crystal beads, check glass. There's a few different names you can find this under, but basically they're a faceted cut of beads, so it'll reflect like a rhinestone almost. You see how that's... Is that flickering good? Okay, good. You will need, for these beads, beading needles. This is a different style of needle than what we used for sewing the sequins on. It's much thinner. It has a thinner head. Again, I'm using the nylon thread with this. The only problem with the nylon thread, see, the nylon thread is much stronger for this kind of thing, so that's why I use it. The only problem is that beading needles have a really small opening, and that's why you have this needle threader for it. This doesn't work with this. So basically, this nylon thread is like a fishing line. You have to kind of just push it through. And where it is a stiffer thread, it is easier to do that. Some needles, it'll just go right in. So that's just something to keep in mind. You will destroy your needle threader if you try to use it. Now I've set up my needle with a double length. That's probably way too long. There's a double length of the thread knotted off at the end. Like knotted the 2 ends together. So let's get started on this. So I said this is the final step. This isn't quite done, but it's done enough that you can see what I'm doing. Now the first side I have already done with what we're doing here. Now we're going to do the second side. So I'm trying to keep things relatively mirrored. So I'm just going to look at what I did on the first side. And on the first side, I started basically at the inner, I guess, row of this set. And I did 2 of the little ones to start, and then I did a couple of 3. Just because on hers, they're different length, and I think they kind of got wider towards the hip. So with your knotted thread, you're going to come up from underneath right where you want that to go. Now what I like to do is actually bring it up a fair amount in here. Let's pull that through and then just stitch it right down through to the edge, the outer edge here of the elastic. What that does is it puts your knot further in so it's not hanging out the bottom. So now I'm taking 2. Hang on a sec. These fly on the bead when I don't have a camera in my face. When I'm on camera, I'm very clumsy. So anyways, if you're doing the 6 millimeter bicone, if you can't find the 8 millimeter, now the 8 millimeter is also very expensive. So if there's a budget issue, you're going to want to stick to the 6. You can just do 4, 4, 6, and you still get that sort of gradient it's a graduated size thing. But what I'm doing is I'm doing 2, 2, 8. And that's going to be your actual drop. Now how I'm holding it in place there is I'm taking another 4 millimeter, threading it on the end here, and then I'm coming back into the 8, skipping that first one, and I'm going through the first 2 here. That was probably very complicated. I'll show you here when I pull through. So as you see, I'm making a loop. So that's basically acting as an anchor there. Now what you're going to want to do is pull it down a little bit so that this is tight for the actual loop of beads, but that it's loose from the actual suit. You see how there's just a little bit of space there? And then you're going to run your bead in there, right on the edge again. And try not to knot your thread. I'm not the best at not knotting my thread. And then once you pull it in, just again adjust it so it's, you want it to be free. If it's too tight, it's gonna just kind of stick out at a weird angle. So now once you've got that stitch in, do one more small stitch right close to it. And you're just gonna do a knot right on the surface there. And that's just gonna anchor it right in the spot there. So then just run run just a quick little seam, a couple stitches to your second spot. When you have a really long thread that you're working with, it's definitely prone to twisting up and knotting on itself and catching on beads and whatnot. I really don't like having to thread that needle, so that's why I work with as much thread as I can. If you switch out more often, you have to thread the needle more often. So once you're in spot where you want to be, just make sure that that is still a good looseness. And you're going to take a stitch right on the edge, pull it all through, and knot it right on the end. Now what this is going to do, this is like technically optional, but what this is going to do is secure all of your beads separately. All of you're making a fringe, but you're also, each of these are individual. So if something happens and you break the stitches in between them, they're not all going to come off if you knot them in between. Okay. So then, yeah, I did one, and then I've got, the next one starts with 3 of the 4 millimeter. So we're doing 3 of those, 1 of the 8, then 1 more of the 4 millimeter. Pull it through, skip that first one, go back in through the actual fringe. Pull everything into place. This is absolutely going to knot. See how it's kind of curling around? So I'm just going to be a bit more careful. The nylon thread is really nice in that it doesn't show up at all, but it's also doubly annoying because it doesn't show up and it's very, very hard to see. So as you can see, I've got that all pulled through, so I'm just going to take my knot there. Make sure that's nice and loose. And there we go. So you just continue that way the whole way on. Let's do another couple stitches right on the edge there. And it is definitely knotting on itself. I am much more graceful with this when I'm not on camera, I swear. It's like in figure skating, you can always land the jump when your coach isn't watching you. Just translates over to beading. And then sometimes, so what happens is you'll pull one more than the other, and then you'll end up with a loop of just one thread, which is what happened there. So I'm just going to make sure. So I've got like about a finger width between that. So I'm just going to make sure that could be one more stitch over. Try and keep it even. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like no one's going to notice if you've got an extra millimeter or two between your beads. You just don't want something really obvious showing up. So that's more like where I want it to be. Again, just secure it with a knot. I hope the thread actually shows up on the video, because otherwise it's like I'm miming this. Okay, so again, now that that's knotted to secure, I'm going to do 3 with 4 millimeter, 1 8 millimeter, and the anchoring 4 millimeter. Skip that first one. Run it through the rest. Ooh, I was trying to be slick. It didn't work. Okay. And I am really not being slick here. What a mess. And yeah, that thread was definitely longer than it needed to be. So as you can see there, I've got this. You want the thread to be tight from the loop to the top of the row of beads. You just want it loose from the actual body of the suit. Knot it through. And there you go. So I'm just going to finish the rest of the way here, and then I'll be done the beading. But it will look like this when it's done. You see it just moves nicely. So what I've done for this one is I did 1 with 2, 1, 2, 3 with 3, and then I did a few with 4, and then graduated it back down to 3, and then 2 across the butt there. So yeah, that is how you do the beading fringe for the bottom of the lover bodysuit. Be sure to check the description so that you can get the link to the whole post to show you everything I did to make this bodysuit.